So, not too long ago, I did a community tab poll on my channel to see which of my most recent big, long, total drama discussion videos you guys liked the most. And unsurprisingly, my two most viewed videos within the past year were first and second place consecutively. Now, admittedly, I made the pre-merge ranking video with the idea that it'd capture a large audience, because if there's one thing total drama fans love more than anything else, it's leeching on the characters who have no right to be as popular as they are. But the Scary Chase video capturing as many people as it did was genuinely a surprise. It makes me happy knowing my niche ideas can get traction to the point of actually making a name in the fandom on a small scale. For real. Scary Chase kinda took off, and it gives me so much pleasure knowing I helped with its semi-popularity. They give off that Lady Gaga late 2000s to 2010s bubblegum pop aesthetic like no other. The fanfiction and fan art are all amazing, so keep it up. But this got me thinking about the future and how I'll top myself going forward. And what better way to attempt that outcome than merging these two videos into one? So here we go. Ranking every total drama ship in the whole series. The rules are pretty straightforward. For the most part, it'll only be canon ships that'll be qualified for this ranking, with the exception of 3 very particular relationships which feel so heavily implied to the point of the lineup not feeling right without them. You can probably guess what those ships will be. Honestly, this list might differ from what the majority of Total Drama's fandom finds favorable in a ship, so I'm a little scared to read the comments. But I'm brave, damn it, so let's begin. Yeah, Sky and Dave is really the only ship in the series I flat out can't stand. Sky as a whole is just an uninteresting character whose entire plotline bogs down to getting cut off by Dave. She's by far the worst of Total Drama's socially awkward strong woman trope that the writers like so much. Because Zoe's conflict of becoming increasingly tougher as the game gets more and more cutthroat, and Priya's conflict of needing to balance her challenge ability and relationships are both so much more interesting than what Sky had to offer. Oh boy, she's good at the game. Oh wow, she has a crush on Dave. Oh no, she has a boyfriend. And Dave, on the other hand, is probably worse than Sky. For being a comic relief, I may have laughed at him like once ever. And that's being generous.
Sky, how could you do that?
But conceptually, I do think Dave has a little bit more to praise compared to Sky. He provides a wider range of commentary on how weird Pakadu Island's cast is, and even has little traits to get in the way of the competition like being a germaphobe. But that doesn't make his constant prying at Sky any less annoying and one note. Now I will say, Total Drama is really good at doing toxic couples, but this one is just not it. Pakadu Island is once again proving itself to be the worst season of Total Drama. Carrie and Devin is probably the most jarring ship in the whole series when unpacking how it's paced. And I think a lot of its problems come from Redonkulous Race's differing rule set to Total Drama. Now most of the time, the race around the world format is able to complement the characters super well. Most notably the Ice Dancers, who unlike every other villain in the franchise, don't have to deal with the bloat and fat of surviving each and every campfire ceremony. They just need to be deranged cheaters. It's able to work comedically and be in favor of the show's writing. They're some of the best executed characters in the series. But Carrie and Devin, I believe, need more going on to justify how far they got. There's only so much talking they can do with each other before the relationship grows really dull. Carrie's dynamic with Kitty was an okay band-aid solution early on, but that's about all they had for the early game. But admittedly, they didn't need much more, since the comedic timing of Devin mentioning Shelly is a funny enough distraction so far.
Just ask yourself, what would Shelly do?
No! I'm not Shelly, and I never will be!
Carrie, wait! Nobody is!
Honestly, it's just a funnier early game Priya and Caleb dynamic, since most of Caleb's oblivious moments are relatively self-contained. Plus, Carrie's infatuation with Devin does have some sense of charm to it. It's like Willow and Xander from the first 2 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know, before Chris Griffin having sex with 1,000-year-old vengeance demons, and the lesbians came along.
Look at me! I'm dancing crazy!
God, I love this show. But then everything goes downhill on Carrie's end once the joke of finally confessing to Devin goes stale, and Carrie unfortunately never recovers from the trap of consistently feeling static for the rest of the season. But honestly, Devin going through the stages of grief was pretty entertaining and actually got the team some more interactions it desperately needed. Like Carrie and Spud, or Devin and the Goths. Once this still relatively uneventful plotline goes on for so long it hurts, that's when the writers do a 180 and flip Devin and Carrie's interests in each other. Almost as if they need to fill a quota for how many episodes the normal Christian couple needs to appear in. And my god, every episode afterwards has me begging for them to be the next batch of characters gone. Ryan and Carrie kind of have a dynamic which I guess is fine, but it doesn't provide anything meaningful to the best friends plotline other than being comic relief, which at this point can't save the pacing. Then Carrie starts crying out of left field, which implies she was just pretending to be over Devin, and because we need just one more episode of this juicy plotline, a train whistle plays over Emma's big-ass monologue to Devin. Also, Kitty can straight up kill him in the very next episode. Fuck, man. What else is new? They don't even provide commentary on being the one normal team since the sisters are right there. This might just be the only example of a season-long plotline that'd benefit from being 13 episodes rather than 26. It's the poster child of quote-unquote bad total drama ships. And yeah, character-wise, this ship does nothing for Gwen. She was already fucked over ever since the start of action, and while World Tour never reaches a new low with her, Gwen's interest in Duncan kind of goes against her loner personality, which made her one of the best characters in Island. It's at least in character for Duncan to be a shallow cheater since he has always been a bad boy, and the Duncan dynamic still has an entertainment factor when they're broken up, unlike Gwent. But hey, this ship brought some of Tyler's best characterizations, and one of Alejandro's best villain plans. So for World Tour's story, Duncan half-acted as a necessary evil to me. But then All-Stars comes around and gaslights us into thinking Duncan broke up, and it's like, okay? And then Sierra straight up contradicts her personality in World Tour, and oh, I see. This is a bad season. Fortunately, these two break up relatively quickly for the sake of giving Duncan a comic relief arc, which could have been done way better. And Gwen getting, honestly, a relatively decent arc of earning a new set of friends after losing her reputation with the Gen 1 cast. Bet you didn't think I'd compliment All-Stars, but there you go. It did alright with Gwen. Not amazing, just like okay. This is where Bridgette peaked.
Wow, you pitch a tent like a guy.
If we're counting Island alone, Jeff is my favorite character in the show, period. He's a fun comic relief who is always around to bring emotional levity. Owen also filled that role, but Jeff's brand of go-with-the-flow idiocy does more for me personally. Bridgette has 2 episodes of relevance in Island, and she's there. I like how Jeff and Duncan's dynamic is strained by Bridgette's presence, even if Bridgette herself only gets a few moments I fuck with myself. Action then turns them into the comic relief makeup couple, and it's like, whatever. They're a first boot. Should I really make a big deal out of this? Hollywood sellout Jeff is also kind of uninteresting, but also I really don't care enough to make a fuss. Jeff and Bridgette peak once Blanley is introduced, and fuck you all, Blanley's fantastic. I like how this 30-year-old has beef with what'd be considered a pretty uneventful couple. But yeah, I love Jeff, even if his dynamic with Bridgette barely ever contributed towards why I love him, only really helping him on a secondhand basis towards other characters like Duncan and Blanley. Bridgette never did anything for me as a whole, so there you go. Shawn and Jasmine are fine together. This is one of the couples where I don't think either of them are really improved based on any romantic implications. Mainly because a good third of the season is spent dealing with one of the most forced conflicts ever. That being Jasmine getting mad at Shawn for playing the game. And it's like, yeah, Jasmine could say it hurt really badly, but no matter how much she says that, what we see looks pretty mild. Take Millie pushing Damien in the reboot, for example. We have this entire cartoony slapstick moment of Damien nearly dying. It's an amplification of the situation that improves the story beat majorly, all thanks to the power of cartoons. But yeah, after this happens, Jasmine gets pushed into the Sky and Dave plotline while Shawn, I don't know, fucks around with Sugar? I really don't remember. These two are some of the best characters in Puckatoo Island by default, with fun quirks like Jasmine's claustrophobia and Shawn's zombie phobia. But Jasmine as a ship does nothing for me. Sorry. Now, I already mentioned Sam and Dakota in my pre-merge ranking video, and me putting both of them in A tier might make their C tier position as a ship kind of a surprise. But similar to Jasmine, Sam and Dakota are good as individual characters for the most part, though I still get some entertainment factor from them as a ship, especially for Dakota's whole intern plotline giving Sam someone to bounce off of when in the midst of a team that couldn't care less for him. Dakota Zoid is still a stupid ending to the plotline even if I love them both. Moving on. Mike and Zoe are okay. Zoe at the start of Revenge seeing Mike's multiple personalities as more of a quirk thanks to Mike's ability to lie was somewhat entertaining, especially with the whole Anne Maria and Vito ship. I guess they also count on this list. Fuck it, they're C tier. Anyways, Scott butting into the ship at the start of Merge is really when the dynamic peaked. Scott's just such a fun antagonist in general. He doesn't beat around the bush with his villainy. Like, fuck yeah, you blackmail that mentally ill man to get ahead of a single challenge. Mike didn't need to stay around much longer after that, which is then good for Zoe's run in Revenge of the Island. Too bad all this praise is immediately thrown out the window once All-Stars comes around, because without the whole struggle of Mike hiding his identities from Zoe, the writer's next big move to bring tension was to just put Mike in a coma for like 2/3 of the season. And when Mike finally comes back, he loses the most interesting part of his personality, making Mike and Zoe another boring Christian couple. Zoe and Mal also aren't that interesting of a dynamic since it's always stuck in a constant state of indecisiveness till the finale. But I will say, if All Stars is a 1 out of 10 season, Mal almost single-handedly makes it a 2 out of 10. I don't care. Giving Mike this big, bad, emo personality who knew Duncan in jail and even scares Alejandro brings Spider-Man 3 so bad it's funny energy. I love it. It's our very first big flagship couple in all of Total Drama. Gwent is an inoffensive and wholesome ship. I don't really feel that much towards Trent and Island outside of a handful of funny moments, but his overwhelming vibe of being your TV show emotionally dependent safe guy for the female lead to gravitate towards is perfect for Island's mellow teen drama aesthetic. It's where I see the show's clone high, reminiscent DNA the most. Heather's attempts at fucking with Gwen were also really good, cause she was just out for blood in season 1 with the whole diary plotline. One thing I really like is how early Trent got eliminated in the grand scheme of things. Total Drama consistently falls into the pitfall of having their flagship couple both making it near the end, so a change in pace is welcome. Moving over to action, they gave Trent OCD. Admittedly, it being portrayed as this actual horror trope is pretty funny from the perspective of me, somebody without OCD. But also I fucking hate it, cause why would you want to dismantle such a perfectly executed ship? And then the aftermath makes it this big deal to ask us, are you Team Gwen or are you Team Trent? And oh my god, I don't care! Neither! Bring me to Harold! I want to be with Harold! Shut up about your dead dad, or brother, or whoever the fuck it is, Trent. And I don't know, Gwen, you probably did something to piss me off. Get him out of here! I'm sick of both of them! Owen and Izzy as a pairing are surprisingly irrelevant for all 3 seasons they're in together. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad thing. I'm just stating a fact over here, cause the same episode they become a couple also introduces their first major conflict. And you think Owen pushing Izzy into Chef is going to be a big plotline going forward before just being dropped. I should be mad about this, but also it's not like they need a more in-depth story to justify their characterization. Unlike some people, there's also the whole thing of Owen breaking up with Izzy in World Tour with little build-up. But also, that episode gave us Oh My Izzy, which is a top 3 World Tour song. Owen and Izzy are both flagship comic reliefs in Gen 1, and them getting together is a novelty in its own right. So their entertainment factor more than makes up for their lack of story. Some ships are allowed to exist as an oddity, and that's okay. This is our first ship, which isn't canon, but still feels worth mentioning. It pretty much became the new poster child of fan ships due to how coy they felt during Reboot Season 2. You know it, I know it, it's Emkulia. Honestly, this ship sucks, and it's not because they're bad together, the contrary. MK and Julia are great together. But god, Emkulia is the single worst name I've ever heard for a ship. It's a mouthful that doesn't sound cute or endearing in the slightest. I was talking with a buddy and Twitter artist named Mega. They're a very good artist that likes Courtney, you should follow. And we both agreed how shit of a name Mkulia is. And that's when they brought up the much better and heavily uncelebrated name JK. It's perfect. Who the fuck came up with Mkulia? So if everyone watching this video uses JK as the ship's new name, it'll be like a pyramid scheme of slowly spreading to the entire fandom. Make it happen. But yeah, I really like how MK and Julia being paired together actually characterizes MK in a fun way, by having her see Julia's underhanded tactics last season as another way of playing the game for her to tag along with. That's pretty interesting, and a new way for a character to look at the show as a whole. It never felt too out of left field since MK only ever gave off the impression of being mildly annoyed after her elimination in Season 1. Plus, MK's newfound teasing of Julia gave us some rhythmic interactions between the two to break up from Julia's villainy. Sure, MK's inherently a supporting character at the end of the day, but I wouldn't consider that a bad thing, as MK still managed to be a unique player in the starting half of Season 2. They're great together, and I wouldn't be mad at them being Total Drama's first ever lesbian ship. Are there any diehard Scottney fans out there? They're probably the most random ship in the series, but that novelty alone, alongside being a cross-generational ship, kinda carries them for me. Courtney getting this weird rebound after Duncan officially sunk was one of the funnier ideas All-Stars brought to the table, and I sorta liked seeing Scott not knowing how to communicate with girls. The point is, I can give these two more excuses for the sake of them existing as comic levity. This is not to excuse the latter half of All-Stars fucking Courtney over. Because right when you think All-Stars is gonna cook, you get reminded that you're watching shit. Cause oh, Duncan being nicer sounds kinda fun. Nope, it's only used to make fun of him rather than giving Duncan an actual change in his dynamics. Whatever, I'm going off topic. Scottney is conceptually good, All-Stars is bad. Nema, unlike the best friends, consists of contestants from two different teams, which makes their dynamic inherently more versatile, thus justifying their slower pace way more than Devin or Carrie ever could. Plus, even then, it's still a shorter plotline by comparison. A lot of people say Noah isn't nearly as funny in Redonkulous Race compared to World Tour, but I have to disagree as his single funniest one-liner happens thanks to Emma's presence.
You know that moment when you realize you'd care if someone died? I didn't. Until then.
That is so beautiful.
Noah's infatuation with Emma also brought a relatively compelling role reversal of both of the team's dynamics around the season's halfway point. Kitty and Owen's differing levels of hype and sometimes even opposing Nema depending on their placement in the game is, like I said earlier, some much needed versatility in the relationship. A lot of what I like about Noah and Emma as a ship comes from single episode lighthearted moments such as the squeegee challenge, or Noah being catatonic for an episode. It's nice. I already have a 40-minute video dedicated to Prelude, so I only really need to go over the broad strokes to justify their B-tier position. To sum things up, I love how they started off as a relatively vanilla couple, as it only makes their erratic nature that much more entertaining. Caleb and Priya are both overachievers who have incredible amounts of pride in their decision-making, which leads to every bit of conflict between the two a train wreck of emotions in favor of giving the reboot's second season some of my favorite twists in the series, such as Caleb's left-field alliance with Julia and his later undoing of that alliance, alongside killing Priya as well. I think the ship does a better service to Caleb overall just because he was usually the big game shaker, acting as this weird liability to everyone who interacts with him, including more minor characters like Z. The couple definitely needed a more steady build-up, as I don't believe the show landed the idea of Caleb's ineptitude being this huge twist. But once we get to the second half of the show, these two turn into a super unique and chaotic duo who always left me second-guessing their endgame. Caleb and Priya aren't perfect, but boy are they compelling. Sorry, Chase. B tier is as far as your raw aura can take you. Shema has a lot of problems, but it's saved from mediocrity for a few reasons. Reason number 1, Chase! I can't help but love the inherent concept of this sociopathic fuckboy with the same level of hype as a character like Owen. That unique description makes him one of my favorite contestants. He doesn't even go out of his way to be a dick. He just can't physically imagine a world where he's in the wrong, making Chase's conflicts so entertaining in a way no other characters are able to achieve. I'm gonna let go of the idea that this is a bullet point of reasons for defending Chema and just move on. I really like how Chase and Emma are able to embody the idea of total drama being a satire, as in they're the obligatory reality TV show characters you just can't stand, and rooting against them is part of their inherent charm, and the twist of this couple starting off as an emotional liability, then turning into a strategic liability against Bowie is so fucking delicious. Emma's own feelings changing Chase's position in the game really helped Season 1's latter half. Seeing Bowie struggle made his notebook play all the more satisfying. So with all this praise, can I excuse the fact that Chase and Emma were the same joke over and over again for their entire run in the reboot? No, not really. It sort of bogged down both Chase and Emma when, in my opinion, they both have room for so much more. But their story was at least concise, and my love for Chase is too powerful at the end of the day. But Cheryl is in this weird purgatory of being technically canon and technically not canon, but all in all they're a fun fling which didn't need much focus, similar to Owen and Izzy. The joke of it being Season 1's biggest surprise pairing was a great way to end Harold's Peak Island run. Leshawna eventually took more charge during the beginning and middle of action, acting as the mediator between Duncan and Harold. It served as a great way to shift the dynamics for a few episodes to keep action from getting too stale. All three of them are some of the better characters that season, and the way each of the three play off of one another is a big contributing factor. But pushing Duncan aside, Leshawna's crush on Harold is pretty wholesome as the more grounded character of the two, while still not undermining Harold's comedy regarding his feelings for her, which we see across all of the first 3 seasons. Baby is one of the best and funniest World Tour songs, and I will not stand for any slander it gets. They're one of the simpler will they won't they's in the show, but there was never a bad time whenever Leshawna or Harold were on screen together. Bowie and Raj could have been the most boring and safe couple in the entire series, but honestly as the show went on, them as a pairing made more and more sense within the context of the reboot. Bowie can morally be a piece of shit. Of course, the idea that he could win $1 million excuses his underhanded tactics, which we see him celebrate as strategy firsthand. Having Raj as the one to keep him in line works super well in the reboot's second season. Season 1 mostly focused on Wayne's reaction towards them as a couple, which didn't leave much room for intricacies other than a few lighthearted moments which worked to flesh out Bowie. But overall, that's my reason for seeing Season 2 as the one which was able to do the heavy lifting for the ship. Specifically the idea of having Bowie and Raj work as this middle ground between the skunk butts when it comes to cheating and playing the game fairly. Both sides felt pretty rational and not overbearing with their beliefs. Bowie never becomes too much of a punching bag with his indecisiveness, and Raj goes out of his way to talk to Bowie during their team's clashes. It's surprisingly toned down, which separates them from the other more erratic couples, while still creating big stakes in the game. And I like how with their little canoe scene, Raj still encouraged Bowie to play the game when not caught up in the morality of cheating. Bowie and Raj successfully delivered a healthy yet still engaging ship. I'm impressed. Everyone loves the Goths, right? They're probably the most universally liked ranunculus race team. I'm a lover of when total drama gets increasingly more and more absurd with its humor, so the Goths just dominating every challenge while keeping the same deadpan expression is gold.
Okay, that was pure luck, but we don't have to tell them that.
They might be one of the only couples in the show to never fight with each other, which makes what problems they actually face all the more impressive. Them not knowing how to handle seeing each other ungothed for an episode was super funny, and highlighted how comfortable they are with each other more than anyone else. They bear this burden as a duo, and that's wholesome. Later on, the whole Loki plotline with the Ice Dancers was the best way to finish off their flawless run. Outside of the Ice Dancers getting increasingly more and more deranged at how seemingly perfect they are as a team, Crimson and Ennui are able to read each other's emotionless line deliveries better than we can, and that brings me so much joy. The Goths are easily the best executed, emotionally stable couple in the whole series, due to the writers finding creative ways to keep their presence fresh. So I've never had a reason to mention this before, but Cody and Sierra are my favorite characters in the whole show. Both of them are equally tied for first and second place. Given that take, they're also my favorite of our technically not canon couples in this list. My explanation for both of them being equally as good as the other comes from my opinions on Cody from Island. because he is the most middle-of-the-road character you will ever see before Sierra comes along. That's when I personally believe Cody is at his best, acting as this down-on-his-luck teenager who doesn't want to be there. Genuinely, Cody is able to dish out one-liners that rival Noah during the beginning section of World Tour.
Oh, dear Cody, if one of us drowns, I want it to be me.
Me too.
And Sierra, on the other hand, gives me a completely different brand of crazy off-the-wall humor to complement Cody's attitude. Sierra is celebrating her win in Germany, passing out from excitement, and continuing to sleep through getting electrocuted perfectly sums up her unhinged personality that I gravitate towards when looking for comic relief. Her over-the-top actions are so fucking funny just from the sheer dedication and reactions of others towards everything she does. Even beyond the Cody shit. All the cartoon logic regarding her challenge ability entertains me to no end. I think most of Sierra's comedy comes from her voice actress's line delivery.
My grandparents are German, Schnitzel, so I'm like a 10th generation slap dancer. It's what kept me alive on the school playground, and probably why I didn't make any friends. But who needs friends when you have a Cody?
She's able to give off this hopeless, romantic, bubbly personality that I don't think anyone else in the show has ever achieved. I can't get enough of it. And this is not to downplay Cody's contributions at all. Like I said, his more subdued and sometimes snarky delivery balanced the duo out, making them never feel one-sided to me.
Go, Sierra!
Hurry!
You are so weird.
As World Tour went on, I love how Cody and Sierra were used in the sense of others trying to play along with Sierra's insanity, and Cody's desperation to get away from her. They were written incredibly resourcefully, with several different changes in their characterizations along the way, whether it be episodic or for the overarching strategies of Heather and Alejandro, alongside Cody sorta needing to entertain Sierra in the game while still voting for her in literally every episode he could, since fate just wouldn't stop pairing them together. That was one of the funniest punchlines in the whole series, and it makes their Final Four development of actually needing each other that much more hilarious. It's weird. This isn't even the type of arc kid should take home with them. He's just using his mentally unstable stalker. The inherent comedy of a wimp like Cody being glazed as the one to take down Heather and Alejandro, with Sierra being his only resource and ally, thus developing an actual fucked up friendship with her, is so amusing when looking at their entire 26 episode run together, purely from this weirdly satiric and dark comedy type of perspective.
Never thought I'd say this, but I wish Sierra was back in here with me.
Let's get goofy with things. You know the show I've been referencing at the start of every tier? Lost? Yeah, it's like Jack and Locke's dynamic from Lost. Sure, Locke's a psychopath who, as the show goes on, you start to notice getting more and more deranged. And sure, he's gotten a few people killed, like you haven't. But Jack's later faith in him after having several moments of straight up hating him is still compelling and rootable, because it's in complement to Jack's overarching story of being this man of science with a savior complex. He needed to accept the gravity of the island choosing him, and Locke was the most adamant about that fact. We like seeing characters change for the story's favor, and Cody, being Jack in our comparison, changed with Sierra's support. He faced the music and became World Tour's protagonist after 20-something episodes of being a comic relief scrappy underdog. Cody's defeat from Alejandro only doubled down on how out of his depth he was. But god damn it, he made a name for himself thanks to Sierra's existence, cementing Cody's place alongside Sierra as my two favorite characters in the series, and bringing forth my favorite arc in the whole show. Remember when this was about ships? Yeah, Cody era as a ship is fucked up. I don't want them to become canon. Luckily, they never were canon. As a duo, they're incredible. That's all it should be. You might say I'm bending the rules out of love for them if they're both this high in purely a ship ranking, but I'd like to see you fucking stop me. This isn't your fucking video. Oh my god. That Cody era summary is literally a whole page of the script, but luckily we're onto a ship I already spent a whole video talking about in length, meaning I can be slightly more concise. Rip Axel is my favorite ship in the entire Total Drama reboot. I understand Axel isn't much of a character herself, but that doesn't detract from the growth it provided for Ripper's character as a whole. They were simultaneously able to endear me and make me laugh in a perfectly paced storyline for the first half of the rematch. I love how something as simple as Ripper forming a casual crush is able to twist his wannabe macho personality so much. It gives him a more awkward and socially vulnerable delivery in the shit he says. It also plays into the idea of Ripper internally being a pretty depressed dude deep down. I say this due to how attached he became to Axel by the end of their run, causing him to sort of become an antithesis to his whole character up till this point, since instead of putting up toxic walls, he genuinely can't bring himself to separate from Axel. It's overcompensation after isolation. I'll defend his sudden double boot until the day I die just from how good Ripper's change is. I used to be somewhat disappointed by how once they got together, there was never anything more for Ripper and Axel's respective plotline, but looking back, it was only one episode of kinda being a background element. Even then, it at least teased the bad omen of these two's over-attachment affecting the outcome of their runs as competitors. Plus, Priya and Caleb, I believe, successfully fulfilled the same job Rip Axel had of being a couple that balances depending on each other and winning the million. I'm not saying these two couples are the same though. I just think Rip Axel stayed exactly as long as they needed to given the story. Now if we had a season 3, I'd argue Ripper and Axel should be the most prominent couple, since Ripper's ending I believe could get retconned into a cliffhanger for a future deep run. His conclusion left him off as kind of a wreck that I think has enough nuance to be present for the whole season. Also, let's face it, Axel has almost nothing to work with. Play into her uneasiness towards Ripper, or her interest in the arts like poetry in spite of amping herself up as a no-nonsense challenge beast. And that's just me spitballing. Regardless, the amount of time I've spent thinking about Rip Axel's future is thanks to their amazing build-up to becoming an item during Season 2's pre-merge. I have no complaints. So at the beginning of this video I said I was scared to read the comments, and now that we're nearing the end I'm sure that you can see why. I am a lover of toxic pairings. I know I already filled my Buffy the Vampire Slayer reference quota, but we're doing another one. The most interesting canon ship development-wise in Buffy is the most fucked up, emotionally unstable, and abusive relationship you'll ever see. Emphasis on abusive, there's so much shit I straight up can't show you. Spike's the best fictional character in anything ever. Need I say more?
Goodbye, Drew. See you in hell.
What are you doing?
Bloody rot. Can't a person knock?
What are you doing?
You were trying to stake yourself.
I won't even tell you who the other character he gets with is. It's that good of a twist. I just inherently find two characters complementing each other based on negative actions and emotions so much more engaging than them making each other better. For fuck's sake. Scary Chase is an entire satirization of what Total Drama's typical wholesome power couple should be. So with that being said, our 4th place position in this ranking is the Haters. Our one team and redonkulous race whose terribleness only made each other stronger. Do I even need to go into more detail? No worry, I will. It's my job. The season starts the two off as our stereotypical background makeout couple, before Stephanie's composure quickly falls apart, which for Ryan is a surprise. Since it's been established from the start, they've only dated for a few months, and just when you think the currently named daters are set up to be the next boot in a similar setup to the vegans and fashion bloggers just before, Dawn drops the non-elimination round in the same minute they officially break up. This is when the newly renamed Haters become some of the funniest characters in the whole series. Ryan and Stephanie being unable to stand each other manifesting itself into having them become one of the tankiest teams in the game is so amusing, since their mental anguish gives them no right to get as far as they do. Yet now that they are here, it makes that fact in its own right better than ever. And most episodes give the two some sort of fun, self-contained plotline. My favorites being Ryan's overbearing positivity to Stephanie slowly making her go mad, and Stephanie using her boomerang on her own team. That one especially. Everyone else's snide remarks towards them was amazing. It really puts into place how out of place the Haters are once they've made it this far into the game. Though honestly, I don't think I even need to put up that much of a fight for why I like them. The comedy of the Haters is pretty caveman brain. I like it when the bad team does bad things. But what else can I say? They make me want to merge without looking. Seeing a duo have just the right amount of challengeability and just the wrong amount of morale could keep me entertained to no end. And even them getting back together by the end of the season didn't bother me that much. Because I never wanted the best for Ryan and Stephanie. There's so many other teams where I can get that experience. I come for them just for the novelty to see a shitty couple. It's peak fiction. already basically said everything about Tyler and Lindsay in my last ranking. Honestly, their third place position might come off as hypocritical when I just spent all last ranking glazing how much more interested I am in toxic ships. But I'm sorry, Tyler and Lindsay's wholesomeness has cornered me. Both of them are top 10 characters in the whole series for me, so that does a good chunk of the heavy lifting. I love the running gag of Lindsay forgetting Tyler's name during the early segments of World Tour, since it works super well to amp up how irrelevant Tyler sees himself, which then conceptualizes Alejandro into his plotline. I feel like Lindsay's the more static character out of the two, just because her only actual changes in characterization for World Tour are in the heat of the moment for comedic levity. But she's still funny, so why should I care? Tyler's unending loyalty is great. Lindsay's stupidity but still unending love for the boy she can't remember the face of is great. There's really nothing wrong with them other than the fact that I want more! Seriously, the fact that Tyler and Lindsay never had a meaty plotline and dynamic on the same team is the biggest hole in the mostly fleshed out Gen 1 lineup for me. Cause these are two characters who combine being nuanced and comedic better than anyone else. They would have given me a little bit of everything, and I just know they'd be first place in this hypothetical reality, but alas it was never meant to be. If you want to hear more about what I have to say about Tyler and Lindsay, watch the ending of my pre-merge ranking video. I think it's okay to leave them off here, being a repeat and all. If I can sum up a total drama arc with a Lady Gaga song, you know it's a good arc. Hence World Tour having 2 arcs summed up with a Lady Gaga song, proving it's the best season. That logic is straight up impenetrable right there. I'm sure if I had the mental capacity to understand the weight of World Tour being the last season for Gen 1 as a unit, at the time of its airing, I'd see just how crazy the concept of giving Heather a love interest is. Since we're going off of action, the season where she's made a point to be shown off as the same level of outcast as Harold before he was given more moments to shine. The concept of showing Heather's casual crush was a great way to bring out some much needed sincerity. Heather is still shown off as being a punching bag just like Action, with several close calls of blowing her World Tour run. And Alejandro is this new character for us the viewer to see a slightly more awkward and jarring delivery for Heather's portrayal. This will then make us feel bad for her abuse. As for Alejandro's side of the picture, he's portrayed as Total Drama's most intimidating villain to the point where I'd argue to this day nobody has beaten him for that title. Heather acting as his one weakness teased throughout the season just makes Alejandro's defeat from his own hubris all the more satisfying, as Alejandro arguably took advantage of Heather's feelings way more. She needed that last laugh for the finale. I sorta like how by the final 4, Alejandro is much more annoyed with Heather than anything else just from how much he's thrown by her presence, which Heather then used strategically before Sierra's exit sorta literally blew up that plan in her face. But whatever, you guys already know this! There's like 50 different videos you can click on for why Heather is Total Drama's best redemption story, and Alejandro is probably Total Drama's best villain. The second portion of their run in All-Stars is much less talked about. Well, it's talked about, just never in a positive light, because God forbid you praise All-Stars in the year of our Lord 2025. I'd say Heather and Alejandro in All-Stars came out relatively alright. Like sure, Alejandro's strategy near the end is a little lame, and Heather's just kinda there, but their weird dynamic of pissing each other off while also liking each other is still very much present. Alejandro faking being crippled is so fucking stupid, but I kinda love it. Alejandro in general is like 95% peak with 2 or 3 of the weirdest writing choices you'll ever see. Not bad. I just have no clue what the process in the writer's room was to get the outcome we see. This is even present in World Tour. Like yeah, Alejandro's gonna draw on a bunch of fish to make DJ think his curse is healed, but then when DJ outlived his usefulness, he's gonna reveal the fish was fake the whole time, thus manifesting DJ's curse again? Like Al even has control over DJ's animal curse in the first place? It's his world and we're all living in it. I'm going off topic. Even if Heather had an early exit, I fucked with Alejandro doubling down on his unconventional love towards her to defeat his brother. It's one of All-Stars' very few high points that leads to me thinking Alejandro came out better than most. Their conclusion was also super entertaining. It pretty much doubles down on how, in the heat of the game, these two will never forgo the opportunity to fuck each other over. It was an amazing punchline to Total Drama's most legendary competitors. Honestly, they're probably tied with the first place position. But forget I said anything, this video needs suspense. This shouldn't come as any surprise. It's Duncan. Duncan just gives me a little bit of everything. They're wholesome, toxic, strategically engaging, and everything in between. This might be a little weird coming from me, Mr. I think Priya's better in season 2, but Courtney might strangely be the only exception in the show of being the character where I prefer their more grounded interpretation, that being Island. The season where I believed Duncan peaked, cause their dynamic of Duncan being this weird punk nobody fully trusts with Courtney being the only one to pretend she has him pegged, before completely reversing that dynamic with Courtney being the one to let go is so delicious, and kind of embodies how season 1 really tried to be a satire more than anything else. But hey, it's not like Duncan had nothing to do. He hid a lot of shit about himself for Courtney to uncover, which contributed to her weird crush. It must be her line delivery that makes me like Courtney so much more in Island.
Okay, this is really weird and creepy, but I love it! I'll never forget you!
It's a lot more low-key. I think it's a funnier dynamic when the two are bouncing off each other with their wits rather than the octave of their voices. But don't worry, I'm not going to evolve this video into why Courtney was flanderized and completely ruined in action, because that's not true! And if I'm being honest, Duncan in action was sort of the perfect way to continue their story in a second part. Personal preferences aside, beginning with Duncan's bullying towards Harold, which provided insight on his character in relation to Courtney before she even shows up. Duncan is justifiably upset with how much of a particularly spiteful loser Harold is, and it honestly makes the conflict a tad more justified than originally perceived based on the power dynamic. This continues as a running gag throughout action even after Courtney comes back, and once she does, they make it a point to show just how out for blood she is. While I am adamant on preferring Courtney's more aloof adaptation in Island, the role reversal of Duncan now being the character who's thrown for a loop in the relationship is just long-term storytelling 101. Courtney's now able to be amped up as one of the season's biggest overarching threats, and Duncan's able to be perceived as more reasonable, to kind of act as action's biggest middleman when put up on a morality scale, which to me shows Duncan as a very deserving winner, who is able to make a believable and engaging dynamic with everyone in action's merge. Once again, I love the both of them. Now I feel I could be brief with World Tour's love triangle, since I already summarized a good chunk of it, with the Glunkin part of the video. But for Courtney in particular, I'm a pretty big fan of seeing her show no restraints towards verbal and physical assault once the two officially break up. Then Alejandro could swoop in and make her lose control, it's great. And it's not like Courtney's torment of Duncan is one-sided. Duncan takes all the chances to laugh at any bit of suffering she falls into. Yeah, Duncan's a coaster on World Tour, but it conceptualizes a fun dynamic with Alejandro, so I'm not complaining. Courtney and Duncan I'd honestly both call pretty great in the season when broken up. Neither of the two bring each other down when they're together. It's mostly Gwen that feels weirdly executed, with their conflicts not being that engaging, giving the overall plotline a weird taste in most fans' mouths. It's very sad that Duncan broke up, but action already set the two on a rocky path, so this felt like a pretty natural progression. All-Star sucks though. Big whoop, because I can barely remember any moments the two had together, since most of it was just Gwen breaking up with Duncan and Gwen befriending Courtney. The same thing as World Tour, just reversed, and also even dumber. I guess Courtney blocking out Duncan made sense. This is literally the only remotely engaging interaction Courtney and Duncan had that I can remember.
At least now you have to stop blanking me and admit I exist.
Yeah, you exist. So what?
But overall, the whole blanking shtick led to a relatively wet fart of an ending for Duncan. Regardless, I still stand by the fact that Duncan is Total Drama's best ship. They have amazing chemistry which simultaneously brought us several of the show's most iconic moments from every category we can come up with. No ending can negate the journey's impact. What, are you guys gonna complain about how I forgot to include Brody and MacArthur? Fuck you, they're C tier. It's funny when Brody gets fat. When writing this script, I honestly thought it'd be another filler video to hold you guys over for the big character essays on contestants like Julia, MK, Z, etc. But I guess I have my work cut out for me. I have to assume this video is gonna get a much more heated reaction from fans, so I hope I did a good job justifying most of the placements based on what I personally value from couples, and general writing tropes. I'm a big fan of satire, what more can I say? Oh, I know, my opinions are better than yours, your opinions are wrong. Bye!
No shit, speak when necessary, no one ever been allowed. Mouth introvert, but I insert a few wow-wows. No Nick Cannon, David Banner when I power.